there. I am excited for this show
Morning, Steve.
today. We got our inspectors on with us today. Hopefully we're going to get something a little more entertaining than well flow out of you guys today. What did you guys bring for us? What do you guys have for a topic? We're not going to get into it, but you got a topic for us today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about mold, which seems to be the third rail of inspections.
Oh, all right. All right. We're going to talk some
I've
mold today.
never gotten more calls of concern with any other service as far as, coming in and saying, well, it's a mold-like substance. You can say mold-like substance, but as soon as you say mold, that's what they're
Yeah.
going to hear.
Yeah.
So
Us agents love that term. We love
Yeah.
that term, mold.
So I was going to quickly walk through kind of the process we go through when we come into the house, what we look for, how we set up our
Cool.
system, and then answer any questions you have.
Awesome. Awesome. Let's open it up to the floor first. Does anybody have anything going on a deal that you guys might want to talk about? Something that you learned, something that you're struggling with before we turn it over to the inspectors? I did want to share a little clip that I've seen this one before, but I came across one of the podcasts that I was listening to, and I think it's really important. And it's regarding focus. It's a Johnny Ive talking about working for Steve Jobs and his maniacal focus. And I know we've got a lot of distractions in our world, and I think understanding what focus really means and maybe how to accomplish it and how to stop yourself maybe when you're in a position where you might lose that focus is really important. So let me play this clip and and then we will turn it over to our inspectors.
This sounds really simplistic, but it still shocks me how few people actually practice this. And it's a struggle to practice, but is this issue of focus. Steve was the most remarkably focused person I've ever met in my life. And the thing with focus is it's not sort of like this thing you aspire to or you decide on Monday, you know what, I'm going to be focused. It is every minute, why are we talking about this? This is what we're working on. You can achieve so much when you truly focus. And one of the things that Steve would say, because I think he was concerned that I wasn't, he would say, how many things have you said no to? And I would, honestly, I would have these sacrificial things, because I wanted to be very honest about it, and so I'd say, oh, I said no to this, and no to that. And but he knew that I wasn't vaguely interested in doing those things anyway. So there was no real sacrifice. What focus means is saying no to something that you, with every bone in your body, you think is a phenomenal idea, and you wake up thinking about it, but you say no to it because you're focusing on something else.
Listen, what if you can start your own lending business, helping other businesses?
Sorry about that. I think when you think about this and you start to, I was my word of the year for 2024. I had the big no up on my door, and saying no, I think, is easy when it's those kind of secondary or tertiary things that you really didn't have a super passion for anyway, or a desire to, or a wanting for, or those things are easy to say no. And I like that clarification of what are you saying no to that you absolutely still want to do because it's getting in the way of whatever your current goals are, whether that's business goals, relationship goals, personal finance, health goals, right? What are you saying no to, right? That's real focus. Anybody want to comment on this one, or anybody, something resonating here that hitting it a little different way? Margareta.
Good morning. So this kind of reminds me of the quote I heard and I'm really resonated with me was when you're choosing something, you're not choosing something else. So it's just kind of that concept. Well, like if I'm wearing this dress, I'm not wearing the nice one that's hanging in the closet. It was kind of more related to clothing, but it's so true for anything. If you are meeting with this person, you're missing opportunity to meet with that other person. So pick your people or your choices very carefully because you are missing on either by choice, you could be elevated and doing something different, or you are not, going towards that goal. So
Yeah, I like it. I like it. A little different perspective. Chris.
I think that this is a great topic, focus, especially as independent realtors. It's something that I struggle with and I have to keep top of mind every day because focus is something, it's so easy. I can't tell you how many realtors like to go to lunch or how many realtors like to call and say, "Do you want to golf?" And if we don't wake up in the morning and have our focus, or I'll speak for me, that it's very easy to go off. And once I go off and I say, "Yeah, I'll go to lunch. I haven't seen you in a while." Like, I really do want to go to lunch with that person. I really do want to connect, but this is my business. I have to stay focused on what my day priority is. So it's a very good topic for me, for sure.
Yeah, and I know one of the conversations that we've had in the past, Chris, and this just came up yesterday. So in Eastern Massachusetts, we decided to partner with a company called Work Bar. So we used to have a physical office out in Westboro, and instead, we traded that in for this partnership with Work Bar. And Work Bar has 12 different offices from Worcester East. It's a really good setup in my mind for our agents, a significant upgrade from having our own office. And here's why. I was out there yesterday for my EO entrepreneur organization meeting with my forum mates. And we used one of the conference rooms at the Framingham Work Bar. And I bumped into two real agents that were there. And the beauty of bumping into or being an agent and going into a place like that is you've got an opportunity to network while you're there, right? So you can go there, you can run into other business people. When you come into a real estate office, which has been the struggle with our offices, is it's just a bunch of other agents, right? So it's good if you're doing a training or you're there to learn, but if sometimes when you're there to work, especially if you're a producing agent, you've got maybe the newer agents that are going to corner you and they're going to ask you questions, and now you can't actually get your work done. Right, so it's a little bit of a catch-22, and one of the reasons that we're trying to transition our office here in Agawam into a co-work space. Let's bring some business people, some entrepreneurs. Let's bring them to together, and let's do some meetups and let's do some networking. That's what this business is about, right? You've got to figure out ways to bump into other people, and in those conversations is where business happens. Wearing my real gear at the gym this morning, had somebody pull me aside and say, "Hey, is that real broker?" A friend of mine just transitioned. She's in San Diego and she just moved her whole team over to Real Broker, right? So just trying to spark up conversations. That's this business. And I think with the office space, when you talk about focus, like what are you there to do, and do you have an environment where you can accomplish that? Right? And so if you're going to the office to generate business, great. If you're going to the office to do business, then you've got to have a space where you can do business, where you can put your head down, and maybe you got a sign that says, "Hey, prospecting, don't bother me," or you got headphones on that it's very clear that you're trying to get your work done. So it's a balance, but I think this is something that as an agent you really got to nail. Anybody have other thoughts on office space, focus, branding when you're out in the marketplace? If you're going to the gym every day and you don't brand yourself in some way, I think it's just a loss. Like, I didn't do anything extra this morning, made a really, really good connection. An individual who will probably move out of the area, but just you could tell he was well connected. And it's just one extra connection that I now have in my Rolodex with doing no extra work. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Just to reiterate, the branding is huge. My son plays AAU basketball, so we travel everywhere, and more conversations always come up just with the work hard, be kind. People just like that slogan, so they'll start. It's important.
Yeah, having a brand that you care about, that you believe in, promote that. Right. I think here at Real, they've made it really easy for us to do that. If you're an agent at another brokerage, hopefully you're proud of that brand and you want to wear that brand. When we were an independent and we transitioned from Rovithis Realty over to Rovi Homes, we did that because we felt like we could make a brand that was just a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more easy to put on gear. So branding is definitely important. I'm seeing you on Facebook, Casey. I appreciate the love, buddy. All right. If nobody else has anything on this topic, let's turn it over to our inspectors and let's talk some mold.
Go ahead. Oh, I did the intro. I did my part, Todd.
Hey, good morning. So yes, mold over the years have become more and more of a hot topic because people are concerned about the health aspects of it. The days of seeing it and poo-pooing it and not worrying about it are over. People are very concerned. So as an inspector, we can't use the word mold because you can only use mold if you prove that it is mold. So you have to test for it. So we use apparent mold, organic growth, noted, that sort of thing. But we can't actually say it is mold without testing it. What we do when we are asked to test for it, and the inspectors at Sherwood, most of us are accredited and certified mold inspectors. So if we want to do a mold or the client asks us to do a mold test, we will do so, and we can do it on site. And the process is typically it's 3 tests. One is your control test that you just get an understanding of what's in the air around it at that particular time. And then we do 2 samples in the house. We can do the attic or the master bedroom is the typical one in the upper stories and the basement. And that's just your typical, if you see something, then you would test that. But that's your overview of the mold testing. It's we have specialized equipment and it goes out to the lab by overnight courier and we get the results usually the following day. And because as part of any home inspection, you're always looking for moisture intrusion, you're looking for signs that would create a mold environment. And that's part of your normal inspection. And then obviously the next step, if you see something, we talk to the client, agent, we think this should be tested because we see moisture intrusion in the attic or the basement, or you actually see mold in the bathroom vanity on the bathroom ceiling, not enough ventilation, and you want to get it mitigated and taken care of as soon as possible. But the testing is really key.
Anybody have any unique kind of mold stories from a deal they've done, a deal that you got going on now that would be a good share for the group?
Todd, what's the worst mold building you've seen? Mold infested.
I went into a house that was vacant. All the windows were closed. The house was completely buttoned up for more than 2 seasons. Never entered. And there was mold in every single room, everywhere. And within 6 months, the house was basically destroyed. No air circulation, all the humidity in there just created mold growth. And that was the worst one. And they literally, at the end of the day, they ended up basically demoing the house down to the frame and had to redo everything on the interior. And that's in 6 months due to
Yeah.
high humidity.
KB, I
Oh.
see your hand up.
I'm sorry?
Someone said that.
Yeah, I had a pretty intense property that had mold a few years back, and we wound up. So when we went to the house had been vacant for quite a while. It had some ice damming because there's no ventilation in the ceiling in the attic. You could see spots of mold-like substance, all along the interior roof line, and the water there in the basement, the carpet was damp, and it was all due to this ice damming inside the ceiling that like went down the walls, and it was a disaster. So we wound up having a mold remediation company coming in and taking a look at the property. And they found molds kind of like what these guys are saying everywhere. Like it was from groundwater and then coming down from the top both ways. So it was a pretty intense situation.
Were you
Luckily,
able to keep the deal together?
yeah. So luckily, what we ended up doing was we actually had the seller file an insurance claim because the roof damming, the damming was due to some issues with the roof that there was actual damage there. And they had tenants in there, and the tenants kind of left and they didn't realize it. So the insurance was able to cover the majority of it. So we wound up, the seller filed the insurance claim. The insurance came in, they ripped everything apart, put it all back in, obviously with the help of a PA. And then once everything was completed, we went ahead and sold the property to my client.
Let's just take a minute to talk about PA. You threw that term out there, and I don't know that a lot of people understand what a PA is. So PA stands for public adjuster. And I think as an agent, you should understand the insurance process, right? So the process normally in KB's situation that she's talking about here is the homeowner goes to their insurance company and they send out an insurance adjuster. So somebody from the company comes out and takes a look at your property. And they are going to try and either say that you have coverage, or they're going to deny coverage. That's the first decision that they're going to make. Is there coverage here? If they say there is coverage, then they are going to write up an estimate and try and make a settlement with you. It's in most insured's best interest, especially as these deals get bigger, to talk to a public adjuster, right? So talk to somebody to get a second opinion on, hey, is this a fair shake that I'm getting with the insurance company? I did the insurance adjusting world for a couple of years, and I think most of these insurance companies, they're trying to be fair. I don't think they're necessarily trying to skirt the system, but I think it can depend on your adjuster, on who you get, and absolutely on the size of the claim. So getting a second opinion is pretty valuable. So KB, I know you're in this world a little bit because of your husband. What do you want to add for color here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing is, when you hire an insurance company, they're they're always going to try to do things as well as they can for the least amount of money, which doesn't always necessarily cover all the issues that the property actually has. So when if you hire a public adjuster, they're really representing you against the insurance company, or not really even against. A lot of times, I mean, like my husband has really great relationships with almost all of the actual adjusters that work for the insurance companies. So they're able to negotiate to get typically the client, more or a better deal or more covered, especially if they have to be out of the house and things like that. So just a really cool thing to know about, and
Well, I think
be
one
able
of
to
the things that you
utilize
hit
them.
on
So
there is additional coverage, right? So the
yeah.
insurance company might come out and they're going to fix that room that got destroyed because of the fire, right? But maybe they didn't realize or didn't catch or didn't want to pay for whatever the fact that the fire had a lot of smoke, and all the smoke now caused all my
Right.
clothes to be damaged, right? So the public adjuster might come along and say, hey, that's great that you guys covered the room from the fire. We also think there should be coverage for this over here, right? We need another
Right.
$3,000 to get our clothes dry cleaned, or to, whatever, to get some smell out of the house, or, so there's little extra additional coverages that you might have in your policy that if you didn't ask about, you didn't know about, you might not be receiving those funds.
Well, I think another one that's just a couple examples of some bigger situations that I know that Eric has dealt with. There was an instance where we were in Florida, there was a hurricane, the roof was damaged in the hurricane, tons of water got in. The insurance company came out, they were going to rip out the ceiling, replace the ceiling, and repair the roof on that side, but the water had actually damaged one side of the cabinets in the kitchen. So they're like, okay, no problem, we'll come in and we'll replace those cabinets. Well, they were custom made cabinets and they wrapped around multiple sides of the kitchen. So Eric's job was to get all of the cabinets replaced, right? So you don't have this fancy kitchen with one wall of cabinets that don't match the rest. And then another one that was really big when we first moved here with the storm, the tornado, was siding. So like people's homes were damaged, their siding was ripped off. And then maybe they had a type of siding, or it was aged siding and it was discolored, or they had a siding color that was discontinued. Rather than the insurance company is going to say, okay, we're going to repair that wall so that that siding on that wall is new, but now it doesn't match. So, the public insurance adjuster will go in and say, listen, the whole house needs to be sided because it has to match. So, yeah, it's definitely lots of different instances you can use them.
I think we should do a guest. So why don't
Yeah,
you talk
I'll get
to
them on.
Eric, and yeah, let's get Eric
I can
on
do
for
that.
sure. I think we should have him. This is definitely a full show. So,
Yep.
Adam, you're muted if you're going, buddy.
Hey, you just calling me?
Yep.
Sorry, I was switching from Wi-Fi to cellular. Joe, just back to the mold situation. I was looking at a house yesterday in Springfield, and like in the living room, there was a little bit of mold on the wall, maybe 3 square feet. And then in a bedroom up on the ceiling, there was a little bit of mold, right? So the question really is, I can, right? And if I go and take care, the mold is gone, but I don't know. So just in terms of testing, obviously there's a physical swab that you can go about making sure that, let's just say I address those 2 spots of mold. How do I know that the rest of the house is good at that point? Is there, I know there's a machine that you can hook up. I've seen it has like tubes attached to it. Does it test each room? Does it test just general? If I just want to make sure when I'm reselling the house, because people are going to see the old photos with a bunch of mold, I want to say, hey, we've taken care of this. How does it actually test? And then what is the cost associated with that?
Okay, so when we do mold testing, yes, you are correct. We do swabs, surface tests. Usually we do an air test, which is what you're referring to. And then, so we would do an air test after the mitigation in that room. We would do an air test on the second floor. And that way we know that there's any mold spores in the air that have been released. It's really important in this case to find out why is there mold there, and it sounds like moisture intrusion from the roof, because if it's going to the second floor and then down to the living room, that's my biggest issue. Is cleaning the mold up is not the biggest deal. It's why is it there and what caused it, because you can clean it all up and then a couple of months later it's back again. So you really need to concentrate on what the issue is and why is it there. To answer your original question, yes, air testing throughout the house will make sure that there's no spores in the air.
And what are we talking cost wise?
So the average mold test is $495 for a complete mold test for the house. And that includes 3 samples. If there's additional samples needed, we charge $75 for every additional samples. And remember, everything has to go to the lab, be tested. That's why the extra cost for the extra samples.
And then are you guys, when you're doing air quality, are you doing anything to test the quality of the air outside the home and then compare it to inside the home, right? Because if I do an air quality inside and I've got a little bit of mold, I mean, that could just be like that area has mold. I don't know, like there's just mold in the air. So how does that part work?
So when we do mold testing, there's a control sample, which is what you're referring to, because mold changes by hour, by day. So we can take the mold sample outside the house within 10 feet of the house, not undercover, and that's our control sample. So just to throw numbers out, if it's a 500 level outside and inside is less than 500 or 500 to 700, that's all within the normal range. But if you have something where inside is 2000 and outside is 500, okay, now you definitely have a mold issue. It's not the spores coming from outside to inside.
And this could be past your expertise, but you know, I was at Best Buy the other day doing a return, and they got a million of these air purifier things now, right? So is there you know, a certain level of mold that is just in the house, not going to come up on a mold test, it's going to be within the outside range? But you know what? Like if you guys are talking to homeowners or somebody's concerned, like these air purifier things, do they work? Does it handle molds? I don't know if this is outside your expertise or not, but if you could
This is a
comment on
little
that.
bit beyond
Yeah.
what I do. I'm more on the testing side. Just for general knowledge, we do have an expert in the company who knows more about mold than I'll probably ever know. So if we ever have an issue such as this, we call on him, and then he talks to the client, he talks to us, and we learn more. But basically, it's not as much as the air purifier, because all you're doing is getting rid of the mold. The question is, why is the mold there in the first place? And that's what you really need to concentrate on. The mold is more of a symptom of something else in the house.
Anybody else want to comment or questions or anything regarding the mold?
Steve, I just wanted to clarify the cost. So the $499 you mentioned, is that going to test the entire first floor? I mean, this is a ranch for clarification, but let's just say I wanted to test 1,000 square foot, 3-bedroom ranch. That $499 is going to cover an air quality test plus 3 like random swabs.
Correct. That would be your control, and then 2 samples in the house. The square footage of the house doesn't really matter. They're air samples, but control plus 2 samples inside the house is the $495. And as I mentioned, if you see mold, you want to take extra testing. Each additional sample would be $75.
And then, sorry, just one last follow-up. Like, what I love about radon is it's a decimal point number. If it's under 4.0, you're good, right? So how gray is the results of this test? Is it, you know, if your number is 500 outside and you're 499 or below, is that what you're looking for? Or is that like 499 is good, but I'd rather see 300?
No, because mold changes all the time. There is no set threshold. You're comparing the control sample to the actual samples inside the house. So there is no baseline, there is no threshold. If outside is 2000 and inside is 2000, that's great. It's all equal. What you're looking for is the differential for mold.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Do we have like a percentage? Hey, if you're more than 10%, the exterior, you got a problem?
I wouldn't go to percentage because there's different types of mold out there. And so now you're getting into the details of the testing. And some mold only exists outside. So if you have a high level of that inside, you can probably find they opened all the windows and doors and air out the house. But in doing that, they brought the outside mold inside, which will dissipate, and that's normal. If you have a high interior mold that prone to moisture intrusion, then yes, that would be a concern. But all of this is getting into the test results more than just, like you said, radon is easy. 3.9 or less, all right, we're done. But mold doesn't work that way, and you can have numbers all over the map. Depends on the weather, depends on the season, and depends on how much outside air comes inside.
All right, we are a little bit over here, guys. Let's wrap it up on that. Appreciate you guys as always coming on and being our experts when it comes to home inspection. We really appreciate Sherwood and all you guys do to make this call a great one. We'll transition over, show you guys what we have available for training today. We've got the Investor Agent Playbook, Facebook and Instagram listing system. That's a new one that I haven't seen come across the board. Hustle and Harmony, and then I must have been maybe this is a recorded live session. Reimagine, Rebuild, Thrive, Succeeding in the New Real Estate Era with Austin Blonde. So take a training, learn something, come back and share it with us. Appreciate you guys. Go have a killer Wednesday, and we will do it again tomorrow morning. Take care.
All company
Thank you
meeting
all.
at 1:00.
You.
All
Steve.
company. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.